We are now live.
Thanks, Amy. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the October 27th, 2021 City of Asheville Multimodal Transportation Commission meeting. My name is Dennis Wenzel, and I am the chair of this group. Our meetings continue to be held virtually for the time being, but there are many ways for interested parties to take part in this gathering. The City of Asheville Engagement Hub, which includes a variety of participation links and phone numbers, can be found on the Multimodal Transportation Commission page of the City of Asheville website. Visiting this page is the best way for you to take part in our virtual meetings. Members, staffs, and guests, please remember to keep your microphones muted at all times when you're not speaking so we can eliminate background feedback and other background noises. I would like to now introduce our commission members. Members, when I call your name, please introduce yourself and let us know what interests you represent. Randy Warren.
Hi, my name's Randy Warren, and I'm on the Bike Ped Task Force.
Hey, Randy. Michael Stratton.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Michael Stratton, and I'm currently in an at-large position.
Hey, Michael. Kenny Armstrong.
Hey, my name is Kenny Armstrong. I represent the Greenway Committee, but I like walking in buses too.
Hey, Kenny. Pat Katz.
Hello, everybody. I am at large, but I have a husband who is an avid bicyclist, and we also walk.
Hey, Pat. John Bassone.
Hi, I'm John Bassoni, and I represent the Transit Committee.
Hey, John. Maggie Ullman.
Hey, y'all. Maggie Ullman. I'm on the Bike Ped Task Force with Randy.
Hey, Maggie. Bill Loftus.
Hi there, I'm Bill Loftus. I'm on the Greenway Committee.
Hey, Bill.
Hi.
And our newest member, Carla Furnari.
Hey everyone, Carla Furnari. I'm on the Transit Committee.
Hey, Carla, welcome.
Thank you.
Anna Sexton.
Thanks. Sorry if I missed my name the first go around. I'm Anna Sexton, and I am the Neighborhood Advisory Committee Liaison to the Multimodal Transportation Commission.
Hey, Anna, you're right on time.
Okay.
Joe Archibald.
Hi, Joe Archibald. I am the Planning and Zoning Commission Liaison to Multimodal, and I'm really bummed I missed the retreat last month because I was looking at all the guess who's, and I want to know the answer to all those.
There was a lot of interesting information. You can catch up on watching our video. It was very good. We certainly missed you. We did get a quick note just a moment ago from Kim saying that she has another meeting that's going long, so she hopes to join us either now or she'll catch us in the archive. Okay, first order of business is to move this over. We're going to approve our agenda for today for the October 27th, 2020 agenda. Can I get a motion to approve?
This is Michael Stratton. I'll motion to approve.
I make a motion.
Okay, I have a motion from Michael and a second. Pat, are you a second?
Yes, I'm a second.
Excellent, thank you. Any comments or questions on today's agenda? All right, without comment, we will take a quick roll call vote. Randy?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Kenny?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Maggie?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
And Carla?
Aye.
Excellent, I'm an aye as well, motion carries. The second order of business is to review and approve the August 25th, 2020 minutes from our meeting. Can I get a motion?
I'll motion, especially since it was delayed because of my additions to it, so.
Excellent, I got a motion from Randy and a second.
I'll second.
John, a second. Any comments or questions on the minutes from August 25th? Without comment and question, we will move on to a roll call vote. Randy?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Kenny?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Maggie?
Aye.
Bill?
I'll abstain. I didn't attend.
All right, and Carla?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Motion carries. Next order of business is the minutes from September 22nd. Can I get a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Pat. And a second?
I'll second.
Randy, second. Any comments or question on the September 22nd minutes? All right, without comment, we will move to a vote. Randy?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Kenny?
Aye.
Pat?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Maggie?
Aye.
Bill?
Aye.
Carla?
Aye.
Excellent. I'm an aye as well. Motion carries. We have no public comment that's been submitted for today. So we'll move on to new business. New business, the first item is the review of the changes of the taking and presenting of minutes citywide. Jessica and Amy?
Hi, everybody. Just a quick update that you will no longer be seeing detailed minutes as you have been. The city is trying to be more efficient with staff time. And so what will serve as the official minutes are the videos that will be archived indefinitely and available online. And then you'll receive an action minute in your agenda. And that will have links to the time point where each item is discussed. But basically what you'll see is actions that were taken and links to the videos. And so if you have any questions about that, let us know, but we just wanted to give you a heads up.
Michael?
So I love that the video is going to be incorporated, number one, but the only concern I have is what happens if we need to amend minutes for the record. How do we go back and fix? I guess we wouldn't need to, would we? Because it's just all there. Never mind. That's a moot point. Sorry.
Yeah.
I was just trying to think.
It's okay.
Thanks.
But I think the only thing we might need to amend, Michael, is if there was a motion or something like that, or an action item that wasn't correctly stated in the printed minutes, or if we actually watched the video and there was something, a glitch or something in that, and we needed to note that. So it is possible there still be an amendment to the minutes, but much less likely now.
And Jessica, a quick question. So once we do go back, hopefully when we do go back to in-person meetings, would this lead us to believe that we're going to have video going forward?
It should.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. That's great.
No, that's a good question. I don't know. Amy, have you heard anything new or different about that?
Yeah, we had a meeting prior to when we were supposed to go back to in person, and it is going to be live streamed, but all of the details and everything are still trying to be worked out with that. But it will basically be the same thing.
Okay, great. Excellent. All right. The next item is the discussion over combining our November and December meetings jointly with the Downtown Commission. Jessica?
Yeah, so previously we had talked about having more of a series of retreats rather than just one big, long, day-long retreat. And so last month was our Multimodal Commission members only, if you will, retreat, get to know you and talk about vision and goals. We have been talking about having a joint meeting with the Downtown Commission, and they are interested in doing that. And so what we'd like to do is have a meeting in probably the first or second week of December, likely to be the second week of December, that we would schedule with them and you guys. And I'm thinking that it'll be maybe a 2:00 start again, so that we'll have 3 hours to meet with them. It will be virtual. And this would be in lieu of having a multimodal commission meeting in November and a multimodal commission meeting in December, since those fall on holidays. So this would be a November, December meeting combined and be jointly held at the DTC. So what I'm thinking would be most efficient is for us to send out a doodle poll to everybody to choose a day of the week. Since it's virtual, we don't have to reserve a room or anything, which makes that easier. And we could just find the best day for the most people. So we'll send that out for the first week of December and the second week of December as options.
November. December?
December.
December. Perfect. Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I think this is a great idea. I like the idea of introducing this, and so we can get that doodle and we can all get on the same page here, and hopefully most of us can make it.
Great. And the focus of the meet.
Sorry, go ahead, Jessica. Finish up.
I was just going to say the focus of the meeting is generally going to be on what we have been calling public space management downtown. So things that fall under that include parklets, shared streets, sidewalk stuff, sidewalk encroachment types of things. And we would present the draft public space management plan. We'd present information about lessons learned and constraints that we've seen with our Asheville Shared Space program. And then we would seek to get some feedback and input from both groups on how to move forward.
That perfectly dovetails into our some of our output from the retreat last month. So that's excellent. Maggie, did you have a comment?
Yeah, and I'll be really brief. This group will remember that we've been talking about this for a while, and at one point we did a hand raise, and a couple of us have been meeting with a couple of folks from the Downtown Commission. I think we met 2 or 3 times. And one of the things that this subgroup has been mulling over that we want to carry into that meeting, but I just want to get into all brains so we're all kind of marinating together, is that kind of we've come to this shared observation that when it comes to downtown, the starting assumption when sharing public space is that the last user experience to compromise is parking. And the first user experience to compromise is pedestrian. And we want to kind of make a recommendation for the conversation that we have with the group board that when designing the downtown shared space guidance and policy or whatever, that we flip that and we say the top priority is pedestrians, because that everyone is a pedestrian at some point, whether you're walking to your car or what have you, and you're just a pedestrian, even if you are in your wheelchair, that kind of falls into that category. So I just want to share like some of the side conversation that y'all kind of not delegated, but some of us volunteered to have, and where that's been going, because we think that could help from a community leader standpoint for us to discuss and have staff kind of absorb as they come up with things. And I know Joe and Michael have been part of those conversations. Anything you want to add as we kind of roll this conversation forward? Yeah, I love that, Randy. Most vulnerable should always be the top priority. I agree.
The only thing I'll add, Maggie, is that I think we've got a lot of momentum that we've got at our disposal at this point. We had this group, along with members on the Downtown Commission, had basically done a pilot program downtown to create these public spaces to make them more safe during COVID. And it seems that, they were pretty well received. And with that in mind, we should figure out, what it is that we need to do to carry them forward. So this is a good opportunity for us to put a lot of good, smart minds together and figure out how to make that happen.
Excellent. All right. So we'll get that doodle coming forward, and then we'll figure out a date that works for us. The next item is introduction of our new traffic engineer, Christopher Karns, from Jessica.
Thank you. I am so very happy to present to you guys and introduce our new traffic engineer, Christopher Karns. I'll let him tell you a little bit about his background. I think he's been here for maybe 2 months-ish. I can't remember. Time flies. So, Chris, you want to tell everyone about yourself for a few minutes?
I don't know if I can go for a few minutes, but I started early August. I come from Florida. I've been in civil engineering since 1992, traffic engineering since the late 90s. And I was with the Florida DOT for about 24 years in various roles. And then the last 4 years, I was in a very similar role as the city transportation engineer for Orlando, which has a lot of challenges when it comes to multimodal practices. I was involved with a lot of DOT projects and road diets and other things like that. I always am really, I learned a lot of lessons at DOT on what not to do. And just being honest, and Florida DOT is actually transitioning to try to actually work toward complete streets. There's a lot of work to do, but that's my mindset, is try to slow things down, try to make them more friendly for cyclists, pedestrians, and transit riders. And I do ride a bike regularly. I will say that coming to the hilly area here has been a challenge. So my mileage has gone way down.
Well, welcome. That's great to have you. Anybody have any comments for Chris starting off? I mean, yeah, Randy, please.
So first of all, welcome, Chris. Chris or Christopher?
Mostly Chris, but a lot of people call me Christopher. That's good too.
Whatever you prefer. So we're super excited to have you, and we've had a lot of changeover, as you probably know, in this position. I've been in Asheville for 6.5 years now, and I think you're the 4th traffic engineer in that time period. So we're super glad to have someone in the position. And I've changed my mentality to having, like we moved here and this is my lifetime home from now on. And I keep thinking that other people think the same thing. It's not always the case. So we're glad that you're here. And if you stay forever, that's fantastic. And if you don't, it doesn't matter, because we're just glad that you're here and in that role, because staffing is just such a huge issue. And your position is so crucial in so much that we do, because when we need to ask someone about an on the street kind of thing, we want to have someone who's a go-to person. And the fact that you have a background, my brother used to live in Orlando, and I've done a fair amount of riding in the area, and as horrible as it is in some ways, it also has a number of things that are relatively innovative and good there as well too, and in ways that were forward thinking, even if it was hard to implement in this situation. So I like that at least you have that experience of trying to make things work in a situation that wasn't designed necessarily to accommodate bikes. So here it's a little bit different, because the topography will give you more fits than maybe the high-speed roadways that you were dealing with a lot of times there.
True.
But I think my brother lived in College Park, for example, and he did some great things in that, which is more of a neighborhood type community that is very much like Asheville. So again, we're just really excited to have you here, and you're probably hearing from us a lot. So that's why I want to know how to address you how you're appropriate, because I figure it will probably be Chris. So I just want to say thanks again for being here.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely. Well, welcome aboard, and we're really excited to have some folks that can bring some of that learning that you have, and that's really what we need, is to lean on folks like that as much as possible. Joe?
Yeah, Chris, just wanted to say welcome, and I'm sure I'll probably be seeing you on the other role that I do with planning and zoning, because everybody's always asking about traffic. Why do we have to have more traffic? So hopefully you can set them straight. But yeah, welcome aboard, and if you haven't heard about it, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Asheville on Bikes is having their big annual Halloween ride on Saturday. So be a great way to come out and meet a bunch of people in the cycling community. So.
And if you want to, you can hide your identity with a costume so that no one will know.
Yes, masks are welcome. All right, well, welcome again, Chris. Good to have you.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Take care. Okay, the next item that we have is a presentation from the Office of Data and Performance. Eric.
Is Eric on? I'm here. Take it away.
Okay. All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Natalie Bailey. I am with the Office of Data and Performance, and we have a brief presentation introducing ourselves to you all and to let you know how we do our work. So I'm going to share my screen. All right. All right, everybody. Again, with the Office of Data and Performance, also known as ODAP. We're going to do some brief introductions. I'm going to turn it over to Eric.
So my name is Eric Jackson. I manage the office, and my pronouns are he, him, and his.
All right. Again, I'm Natalie Bailey. I am the Data Communication Specialist, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I'm Cameron Henshaw. I'm the performance analyst in ODAP. My pronouns are he, him, his, and it's nice to be here.
So we're just going to let you know who we are, what we're working on, and how you all can apply some of the same methodology and tools that we use to your own work, and hopefully have some time for a discussion.
Okay, so this is the mission statement for the office that we formulated a few months ago. The office has been in existence for since March, really, which is when Natalie and Cameron joined us, so 9 months-ish or something like that. And I want to kind of emphasize three things in this statement. And the first is that word empower. One model that you might use for an Office of Data and Performance is kind of we're the shop that you bring your requests to, and we get you the data and do an analysis for you. And that would be great, but not with 3 people. So our model is really to enable others to do the work. And that kind of leads me to the second piece. Who are we trying to enable? And it's really, we don't consider ourselves just an internal service department. We obviously are wanting to make a difference in staff's ability to use data to make sure that we're doing the right thing and getting the right results. But we also want to make sure that we're making a difference in the community's ability to advocate for themselves using data. So really facing in both directions in everything we do. And then the last is kind of what it's for. And the center of that is accountability. It's really making sure that we're delivering the results as a city that we commit to, and ensuring that we do that in an equitable way. And one of the things that is also central to how we think about this is that if, as part of our process, we're coming to agreement about what the outcomes are and how we're going to measure whether we're achieving those outcomes, that actually is a really fundamental basis for good communication. And so we think about communication again through everything we do. Go ahead with the next slide, Natalie.
Okay. All right, so on this slide, we want to highlight some of the ways in which we work. And so we work in a couple of ways, and I will touch on the first two, public engagement and reporting. And this really is about developing a shared language for the public and for staff internally that is grounded in data. For the public especially, this is really about making sure that they understand how we're doing things and why we're doing them, using that common language and helping them to define what success looks like on city projects and initiatives. And that's the second bullet, right? Creating ways for the community to participate in defining the success of programs and services. We want our work to be impactful, not just in ODAP, but in the city at large. And the only way we can do that is if we have input from the community. And then secondly, data-informed decision-making. We want all of our decisions to be grounded with data. And so we have an integrated process that is making its way into all of our city processes. And most notably, we use this process in the budget process, which was a collaborative effort between ODAP and our community engagement folks and budget and equity. And so I'm going to turn it over to Eric so he can give you more insight into that process and how we went about it.
Well, I'm not going to go deep into the budget itself. We have limited time and probably limited interest in all the details. But I've been with the city of Asheville and in government for 5 years, and one of the things I learned pretty quickly is that if it's not tied into a standard process, it's not going to happen in a sustainable way. And of course, the premier process in a municipality is the annual budget. And so what we want to make sure, if we're going to have staff change how they do what they do, then we need to enable that by making sure that it's plugged into their regular workflow. And that is the budget. We're looking at when we're making a budget decision, we want to make sure we're using data to prioritize. We also want to make sure that if we're making changes or undertaking new initiatives, that we have ways of measuring whether those changes are actually having the impact we wanted to have. And a lot of this, because we are trying to change how staff does what it does, we also have to do a lot of capacity building. This is really a different way of doing things than not just in the city of Asheville, but really across the country. There's been this is a real trend in trying to learn how to do a better job of using data and data-driven decision making. And so internally, we are running classes for staff. We do sort of a combination of training, deep dive training and facilitation for teams or divisions that are working on particular projects. And we also maintain an internal newsletter that comes out twice a month, a discussion channel, and a collaboration group, cross-departmental collaboration group that meets once a month to bring shared challenges and try and bring the brain power of other groups in the city with other perspectives to bear. And I'm not going to talk a lot about governance because frankly, it's not the most exciting of all the things we do. But it is also, it's really foundational. You need to make sure that you have data systems that get you data that's up to date. You need to make sure you have processes in place to make sure that that data is complete and accurate. And you also need to make sure that you are protecting yourself both against malicious actors, and that's a big deal nowadays. So you want to make sure you have good data governance processes that catch that and protect against it, but also looking for potential for accidental harm. It is unfortunately easy to use data in ways that might seem great at first, but then turn out to have adverse effects on people, either because we're sharing data that we shouldn't be sharing, and we want to make sure that never happens, but also because the way data is driving things might not be accounting for some things just because of the data we have instead of the data we actually ought to have. So let me hand it back to, or I guess I'm going to keep on talking a little bit about some of the specific efforts, not handing it back yet. So I could talk for a long time about any one of these, but I wanted to just give you a quick overview of some of the things that we've been involved in over the last 6 months. We have as you all presumably know, the city is looking to invest significant resources in addressing our houselessness issues. And so we want to make sure that we're both reporting out what's going on there in terms of actual impact. And as we undertake new initiatives, that we're able to kind of name what those initiatives are trying to accomplish and be able to report on how they're doing. We're providing data support for the reparations process, basically by gathering baseline data that is a resource for the commission that will form as well as for the community. And we kind of generally are a partner to equity wherever we can be in making sure that we're providing them with data support. And we're involved in lots of specific initiatives. I've talked about the budget process. We've been involved particularly around evaluation in the American Rescue Plan Act funding and how that's used, evaluating categories, evaluating proposals, and eventually tracking the performance of whoever gets the money. We've worked with the business inclusion I talked about our capacity building and governance a little bit, and let me hand it back now, finally, to talk about some of what we're doing here, obviously, but more broadly, our community engagement.
So yes, we have an engagement program that we are currently involved in and rolling out. And this engagement process actually began back in the spring, and it basically was centered on benchmarking. We spoke with community leaders, neighborhood leaders, folks that provide services in the advocacy community to our residents and neighbors and other stakeholders. And those questions really were surrounded on barriers to city services or perceived barriers to city services. And so a lot of people might think, well, why are you're the data folks, why are you doing any type of engagement? And that's because it's important to actually speak with folks to gather data needed. Relationship building goes a long way in all aspects of public service work, and this is no different. And that narrative data is important because it's still data, and it often informs the baseline and leads us to ask the questions internally about whether the metrics that we need to look at and examine and what's important to the community. So this is a part of that effort. This is our roadshow. We've spoken to a couple of city boards and commissions, and we wanted to introduce ourselves to you all in particular because you all are engaged in city government at a level that a lot of folks aren't. And so we want to let you know that we're here, what we're doing, but we also want to let you know that we want to be a resource in providing tools to you all that you could use as you carry out your own work here on this particular commission. So Eric? Okay.
So when we're talking about tools, which sounds technical, it's amazing how little of what we do is actually technical. It's more about clear thinking. And if you're trying to change how you do what you do, you want to make sure that you've got some structure around trying to do that. And we've adopted something called results-based accountability as a framework for thinking about performance and how we use data to manage that performance. It's being used all over the country, but in particular locally. In fact, I was on a meeting and having to do with criminal justice today, and RBA popped up. So we're seeing it in education and healthcare and criminal justice, and it seemed obvious from that standpoint. It also is the foundation for the racial equity toolkit that the city has adopted from the Government Alliance on Racial Equity, which seemed like another good reason to adopt it. The best reason, though, from my standpoint for using RBA is that it really is simple and it's grounded in kind of a set of questions. The full process has 7. We've kind of boiled it down to these 4 questions. And I wanted to share this with you because I think this is a tool that you can use in your own work. And it starts by saying, okay, if we're going to do something, let's start with the end that we're trying to achieve. Let's start by thinking, what are the actual results we're trying to get? And how are we going to tell? So what does it mean for our community or our customers, if it's a program or service, to be better off? And then how are we going to know if that's actually working? And there's some process, and we do training around this to kind of what does it mean to experience the better off? And then out of that, you can start to come to some good performance measures. That may be hard numbers. In some cases, it is based more in narrative data, and that can be important too. One of the most interesting things to me about RBA is, it's normal when you're starting out measuring to say, we need to get a baseline. We need to know where we're starting from, which RBA obviously does as well. It takes it one step further to say, where are we now and what will happen if we don't change anything? So we're really trying to project forward. If we don't do anything different, Is it going to get better? Is it going to get worse? What does that mean? How do we measure it? You know, how will that be reflected in those performance measures? And that allows us to do two things. It allows us to ask, given all the challenges that we face, is it important that we address this one, a priority issue? Maybe we look at where we think it's going to go and we say, if we had lots of resources, we would work on this, but maybe it's not the most important. It's okay if it stays at that level. Or maybe we say, no, we're going to work on this. And rather than kind of arbitrarily setting a target, which is what a lot of performance frameworks have you do, we're going to achieve a 30% in reduction in whatever it is. We're really looking at what's the trend and how are we trying to bend the curve, up or down, whatever is appropriate. So we're really focused on improvement rather than just targets. Targets are easy to fail. Improvement is something that you can work toward. And then you go into the strategies. Okay, here's what's going to happen if we do nothing. What are we going to try? And a really important part of RB is to say, this is an iterative process. We are going to try this. We're going to see if it has the impact we expect it to have. And if it doesn't, we're going to go back and say, we're not doing as well as we want to on these performance measures. So what are we going to change? And it gives you a nice framework for thinking about this as a process of an iterative process of improvement rather than a binary you failed or you succeeded. Because most things we're working on are hard, as certainly you all in this particular commission know well. And there are things that play out over years. And so you don't want to wait 10 years to find out if you succeeded. So a lot of this is thinking, how are we going to know along the way? And in practical terms, what are the ways that you can use this? And I think these are questions that you can be using in your work and on this commission as well as outside of it. But also these are questions that you can be asking staff. We want to be held accountable, and this gives us a structure for saying, okay, what are the results you're trying to achieve? How are you measuring them, et cetera? You all in this particular group are probably ahead of many in the city in terms of having lots of data and some good standard ways of looking at some of the issues, but we can always all do better. And then the third way that I would love for you all to use this is to start using this kind of terminology in your interactions outside of this context, because part of what we want to do, as Natalie said, is build that shared language and shared approach with the community so that we're kind of all on the same page about how we're trying to approach this. Go ahead to the next slide. So we're going to share through your liaison this presentation, and there are links in there to some resources. There's going to be, starting this next month, we'll have a newsletter going out, the Asheville Data News. And you can also look on our webpage. We try and keep that up to date with what we're working on a pretty regular basis. And obviously you can also feel free to reach out. That's the office email, and you can also always reach out to me.
All right, so here's the discussion portion, and we've got 3 questions up, but I really always like to hear from folks on the last question regarding what are some of the ways that the Office of Data for Performance can support you in your work. But with this particular group, I'd also like to hone in on number 2, which, as you can see, is how could you measure the impact of your own work? Because I know you all are all very involved in your assignments on this particular commission, and you know the work that you all do touches the vast majority of all of us that live and work here. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and hopefully we can open this up for discussion.
Ready?
So I think, like you said, you're a 3-person office, and so you can only do so much. But there's so much that we could use your help in so many different ways. So, for example, I live just a couple blocks off Hendersonville Road, and it just gets busier and busier and busier, all the time. And Asheville keeps growing, growing, growing. And it seems like we don't have any appetite for constraining the growth in Asheville whatsoever. And so when we look at our multimodal transportation options, we really see that as being a solution to some of the problems that are being caused by growth. But the data would be helpful to us to have things like, if we continue in the current rate of growth, and then if we're adding these many housing developments both in the city and outside the city, like several have just been added or approved for Arden, which is going to feed into Asheville and things like that too. How much busier, for example, is Hendersonville Road going to be? I mean, I have to wait over 3 minutes right now to even take my son to school every single day. I waste a day a year waiting at a traffic light to get out of my neighborhood. 1 full day a year waiting at that traffic light because NCDOT feels unnecessary that I wait there for 3.5 minutes for every single time I pull up that intersection. So that just, impacts everybody who tries to get on Hendersonville Road there. But is it the kind of thing that we could say, how much busier yet is Hendersonville Road going to be, or any other road, with projected things? And then if we implement certain strategies, like if we did run transit more often, if we added bike lanes to Hendersonville Road or protected bike lane on Hendersonville Road or whatever it is, and then mitigated some of that traffic concerns, what real life effects would happen. Now, that takes a lot of more expertise, than just collecting data. But that's the kind of thing that would be really, really useful to us. If we could demonstrate, even a 2% reduction in traffic by encouraging specific multimodal strategies, that would be huge in terms of the impact. Can we do that? I mean, do you have the ability to help us with those kinds of things?
So we just got introduced to a traffic engineer. Welcome to the city, by the way, Chris. So I think trying to figure out how to best put this, because obviously you take that particular issue, multiply it several fold just for transportation issues, and then multiply that by all the other things that the city does, and it's beyond our capacity. On the other hand, that's exactly the kind of area where we would love to work with the transportation department and you to prioritize which of these things we might do and maybe help figure out how to do some of that stuff. So there's going to have to be some prioritization, obviously. And there may well be, in some cases, you want to do something really sophisticated, like you want to actually model out for the city of Asheville in particular streets, how that's going to work. We don't have the expertise to do that. We would have to bring in either folks in the transportation department or outside consultants. But what we could help you with is maybe formulating some of those questions, identifying research that's out there, so that maybe we don't have to go out and repeat the work. So I think finding ways to support you in the process, we may not necessarily be the ones to do the analysis or get the data or anything else, but we will work with transportation and you, if we're invited in, to figure out the best way to identify that data, figure out some ways that could be collected, maybe figure out how to do some of the modeling. So we would love to do that kind of project. I want to be careful not to commit to, yes, we will do that, just because that's got to go through a process.
Maggie?
We have a hand raised. I think you're on mute.
Hey, that should work now.
There you go.
A couple times during your presentation, you're like, oh, well, this is cool, but this might be the boring part. And I'm that nerd who's like loving this presentation because you got to measure what matters. Otherwise, we don't know what's changing. And so I'm very excited that we have this office. Natalie, it's nice to see you again. We overlapped for a little bit while I was at the city. So yay, keep up the good work. Let's get this even bigger, because I think this is a gap that we have. And a connection to our work that I was thinking about, and I'm kind of looking back to my fellow commissioners now, is that we just had our retreat where we set 4 goals for the year. And it'd be really cool if one of the first things we do as groups is come up with a metric. what does that look like, and maybe partnering with this office to help with that, because I don't think it's as easy as bike serve. Like, it might be more complicated, but that might be a place, Eric, where your team could help us. Like you're saying, like looking to what those best practices are, because we all are just coming out of deciding that we want to collaboratively work on these 4 areas, and it would be really great for us to start doing that. And then a second thought, which is just kind of maybe a question, is, do you imagine as your work continues that we will get to a point where the city manager on an annual basis can say, these are the 10 mega metrics that we're tracking for our community, and we're feeling healthier because, and safer because, and that type of thing? Because I think that's missing for folks like us who do put a lot of time in through commissions. Having that feedback with the data at the big picture level helps us go, oh, right, we're supporting the comp plan, and here's the metric that we want to be keeping in mind. Like, it's another part of the planning puzzle that's missing right now. So I hope that we can support you all in getting towards that.
So you are singing our song. Yes, and if Ms. Campbell has anything to do with it, the answer will be a resounding yes, because I know that that is something that she valued highly in Charlotte. Having those community level quality of life indicators is what they're often called. And doing it in, so one of the things, we're doing our 2022 planning right now as an office. And one of the things that we're talking about is, how do we do all of this kind of within the context? Let's take the comp plan. That gives us what the areas are. And we have some good first pass metrics that we can start to look at that are in the comp plan, not considering that the necessarily where we end up, but it gives us, some initial thinking, and we start to build out the quality of life indicators, ideally getting that down to the neighborhood level, which I know Deborah Campbell is very interested in doing. So that's going to be a process. I think one of the, in my somewhat brief, but not as brief as some people's time with the city, I have seen some we're going to do everything all at once initiatives come out, and they very predictably tend to fail. And so part of our focus is to say, okay, we know where we want to go, and you can find kind of our long-term goals on the website. We know what we want to be true in the future. What can we do this year? What can we do next year to take another step? And so what you're talking about, Ms. Ullman, is exactly where we want to go. And I also want to make sure that what we do in year one is something that we can actually sustainably continue and build on year to year. So that's very much how we've done the budget process. We did a very tiny bite last year. We're taking a pretty big step, I think, this year. The other thing I would emphasize that I think is central to how we operate, and also I think a really good thing generally, there is very little that the Office of Data and Performance does by itself. We're doing the budget together with the budget department and the equity department and communications and public engagement, and planning is coming in on that. Pretty much everything we do, we're doing in partnership with departments or other internal functions, because what we're trying to do is change how the city operates. And therefore it can't be, well, ODEP does this, ODEP does that. It has to be collectively, we find ways to change our collective behavior. I think there was another hand up.
Yeah, Michael?
Well, I don't know if there's anybody else that wants to comment, but I'm just thinking that the stars seem to have aligned on today's agenda with the introduction of ODAP, as well as our new traffic engineer. The presentation that I'm going to be giving here in a minute, it's got a surprise ask for this commission, and apparently your team, I think, could be really involved. So I just wanted to invite you to stick around for this presentation, because I think right off the bat, we're going to be able to give you an ask.
I will look forward to it.
Excellent.
And, well, before I go on, just other questions?
Well, I'd like to thank the three of you for coming today. That's really helpful. It's always good for us to kind of understand what our capacities are. When I think about the work that we do, and you all, it sounds like you have some fairly, good background within the city. The work that we do on this commission often is, we're thinking about how do we, how do we handle a road diet? How do we handle getting a safe bike lane in there? Do you see your role more as a reactive or proactive? Some of these things, like, do we want to track metrics over time? Are we saying, okay, we're starting at 0, and if we have 1,000 folks using this path, that is success in year 1, and we've minimized vehicle traffic on that lane or something? How do you see us setting that up? Is that something, or is that just out of the scope of what we really want to be asking from you?
I think that is, so I can't answer. I think that's a conversation to be had with the staff that's liaison to your committee, and kind of figuring out how that plays in. And a lot of this may be just teaching, here's how to think about it. And in other cases, it may be we're going to provide some technical assistance. I do want to kind of jump on one word that you used, and I see Cameron smiling because he knows what I'm about to say. The reactive versus proactive. And I think very much one of the themes in all our conversations in the office is how do we help the organization really get more proactive? And a lot of the RBA stuff is about doing the planning in advance and getting yourself set up so that you're doing experiments, you're learning, instead of setting something in motion and then kind of reacting as things go wrong. So that proactive part is really one of the things we're really trying to help the city do better.
Excellent. That sounds great. We are privy to, we have these folks that are contracted to the city to come in and give us these really detailed, in-depth plans about how to go about these fairly complex challenges, and to have your participation in that to provide some type of data overlay, either to verify some of the information that we're getting from them, or to provide some additional insight as to how this works. Maybe they're using some national numbers and it's a little bit different for our region or our area. So that type of thing would be really helpful. An additional thing I think you could offer some insight on is we have neighborhoods in our community that are geographically undesirable for some of the projects that we want to do. They're very expensive, and they've been maligned. They've been kind of sidelined in some situations. And so it might be more expensive for us to connect with these folks and connect with these communities. But I think in the long term, we are a better city when we're able to do that. And I think that's some of the insight that maybe your team could bring into us to help us understand that, yes, it's a little bit more expensive to do it this way, but those folks, the folks that are in that community may not have any access to the city right now. And it's our job to make sure that everyone has equal access to our city and the resources.
Yes, absolutely. We would love to work with you all and transportation on that. And also just thank you so much for the opportunity to have a little bit of conversation with you, and thank you all for your service.
Well, we really appreciate your coming in today, and as Michael kind of gave us a little insight. If you want to hang around, there might be some interesting next steps. So, without any other further questions, anyone else have other questions? All right, we'll move on to the next item. Michael, we're going to we have a presentation for us on the Thompson Street Open Streets event.
Yeah, so let me get set up, try to figure out how to share screens real quick, and then once we get that established, I'll start talking. Let's see. All right. Y'all let me know if you can see this. I'm going to try to get in presentation mode.
Looking good.
Okay. All right. So recently, on the 16th of this month, the Oakley Neighborhood Association, in partnership with ARP and Asphalt and Bikes, had an opportunity to do what's known as an open streets day. So for those of you that don't know, Open Streets, according to the openstreetsproject.org, here's like the long write up of it. But in essence, what it is you're closing down a street that's normally, let's just say, inaccessible or unfriendly to bike and pedestrian traffic. And you close it down to vehicular traffic, and you really try to create a space that's very inviting and welcoming to people to utilize the space in a capacity that they normally wouldn't have the opportunity to do. So before I get into the actual event itself, I'd like to just give you a little bit of background about who put this on. This was, one second, I'm gonna put this, oh man, here we go. One second. So I'll let you look at this while I talk about it. But basically, the background on this is a community-driven situation. We did have a lot of support from Asheville and Bikes and AARP, as I'd mentioned. But in essence, our community is Oakley, the neighborhood. It's roughly 7,000 households in the jurisdiction. So it's a really large neighborhood in Asheville. And it's got some characteristics that are pretty interesting. You can see in this picture that the Shenandoah River is here. That constitutes one of our borders. We're also surrounded on both sides by railroads, road tracks, as well as 40 and 240. So we're pretty hemmed in neighborhood. And in 2015, some of the zoning in Asheville, and particularly for RS8 zoning, had changed. So in essence, what you had is in the past, previously, the minimum lot size to build on was 5,000 square feet. The zoning had changed in 2015 to make it 4,000 square feet. So what that did is incentivized neighbors to sell portions of their backyards off. So here in Oakley, we have really big backyards. We have like third acres and half acres. And when that happened, all of a sudden, everybody started selling their backyards, and we started to create a lot of infill, which is fantastic if we're trying to address the needs to combat affordable housing problems that we have. The goal with infill is you create more housing stock and bring houses price down overall. But there's some negative externalities to that. So when you get a lot of new neighbors coming in, you also get increases in traffic, both in volume and flow and speed. And so, when we put this event on, the whole goal was to showcase walkability, livability in Oakley, because that seems to be something it's really lacking. So to get into the event itself, we actually closed down Thompson Street for a particular reason, because it happens to be right on the Shenandoah River. So that's a very flat corridor. It's easy for biking, easy for walking. There's not a sidewalk there now, but it is on the path of what will soon be the Greenway. They'll connect East Asheville all the way down to the River Arts District. But in the meantime, what do we do with our space? So we wanted to put this event on to just to raise awareness of this. And it's not just for Thompson Street that Oakley had done this. They're concerned in totality for the neighborhood. But here's a map of where we closed. And you see the big thick green lines are basically the connectors that go from Fairview Road, which is our main thoroughfare through Oakley, down into the portion of Thompson Street that we closed down. And once there, we had a number of events. We had a sign making deal where we had asked all the kids to come and paint some signs. In fact, there's a new housing development that is going in where they're putting another 18 houses, and they have plenty of spare wood. So we asked them if they'd donate it for this cause, and we painted them all up. And if you go down Fairview Road now, you'll notice a number of these signs are kind of all over the place. And really, the timing couldn't have been better, because a lot of folks are planning on trick-or-treating in this neighborhood, which is kind of a new thing for us. But this event was so successful that people really want to take ownership of their sidewalks and walk and enjoy Halloween this year. So we're happy to see these signs that were put out. Like I said, Asheville and Bikes was there, and they're phenomenal as a sponsor. I have to put a personal thank you out to Mike Sewell and his team for putting up the bike rodeo for the kids. I know everybody had a lot of fun. It was amazing watching, tiny children that are, barely able to talk, just ride around on bikes. So, and their parents too were super enthused to be able to have this space. But more importantly, Mike and Asheville on Bikes had really helped us navigate the permitting process. You have to remember that we only spent about 5 weeks putting this whole thing together. So without expertise, I don't know if we would have been able to do it. Also, AARP was really cool. They had provided a few $100s for this event, some of which we were able to commission Sunshine Sammys to come out. And we told everybody, like, look, if you are able to walk to this event, you're going to get a voucher for a free Sunshine Sammy's ice cream, which I thought was really neat. So big kudos to AARP and Sunshine Sammy's for making that happen. One of the other things that we wanted to highlight in this event was to do like a street tweak example. So this was one that I personally worked on myself. What we were highlighting here specifically on Thompson Street is it's a pretty walkable corridor. It's slow speed, like 25-mile-an-hour zone. It's pretty straight, and it would be very, very walkable and bikeable with the exception of a couple of blind curves. So what we demoed here was a push-button pedestrian call beacon that would illuminate a pedestrian zone. So if you're on the other end of that blind curve, you'd press the button, and this sign would light up along with 3 flashing sticks that are quite coming up well in this photo. But what it does is alert cars to know, hey, there's pedestrian in the zone. Be cautious and be prepared to slow down. There's going to be somebody in the zone. But it's these types of things that we wanted to showcase, and we want to see things like this in our neighborhood, not just here on Thompson Street, but across the whole neighborhood. Here's the same from the other area. So you see like pedestrian zone, cars going to move over a little bit, knowing that there's people. Also, a big thanks to the French Broad MPO as well as the City of Asheville. The City of Asheville was really good to get me these stand-up easels and white papers so we could collect data in this little zone that I just highlighted. And then Hannah Bengali with the MPO was awesome about she stayed at this station all day and asked people to answer these questions. And basically, she and I had asked open-ended questions to participants, basically like, what would you like to see in Oakley to make it more livable, more walkable, more bike-friendly? And we collected this data. So once the whiteboard was full with ideas, then we asked people to rate their top 3 choices to weigh, what they'd like to see. So, here's in essence what it is. But I took a dive at it earlier, and in essence, 92% of the respondents had been advocating for either further connectivity in Oakley or traffic calming implementations. So it was pretty resounding. When you get all those people out enjoying that space next to the river, they're pretty quick to tell you that they want more, and that was the goal of the day. So key takeaways. The event itself was considered a huge success. Again, considering only the 5 weeks of planning that we had, we were going to be really happy just if the road was closed and that was it. But we had a lot of other programming that was successful, and we are already underway planning the spring event, which should be a bigger and better event. We also were really effective, I think, in engaging and energizing the neighborhood about walkability. And as I mentioned, that 92% figure was pretty startling, but not surprising. So next steps, the Oakley Neighborhood Association is a new association. It's resurrected. It had been around previously in the late 2000s and then had kind of disbanded in 2008, and it's been on hiatus ever since. Our neighborhood had resurrected it here this year. And one of the things in our our plan on a page is specifically addressing, livability, walkability, and connectivity. And, this event was all part of that. But what we're going to be asking for is particularly our transportation committee as a subcommittee of the Oakley Neighborhood Association. We'll be asking for the city to develop and implement a neighborhood-driven plan to increase connectivity, bike ped safety, and overall livability in Oakley's neighborhood of 7,000. And our proposed process would be that, step one, we can conduct a comprehensive neighborhood-wide transportation study to collect data, figure out where the hotspots are, what needs, where our needs actually are, and where would be best suited to make fixes. Step two would be engaging in a joint analysis of drafting that neighborhood plan. And then step three would be a presentation to MMTC where, conceivably the plan could be endorsed and maybe even pushed up to city council. But right now, we don't have a vehicle to do that amongst multimodal. We've talked about that before. It's been one of the issues that we've, I think, wanted to address. It's just, the question of, how do we get from the neighborhood level to the council level? What's the best use of the MMTC as a conduit? So I've got a motion that I want to put on the table, and I'm curious to know the discussion about it. But as currently written, and I'll just go ahead and make this motion now. The motion would be: we, the Multimodal Transportation Committee, support participatory governance among our city neighborhoods, and thus support the establishment of a citywide program that would afford recognized city neighborhoods the opportunity to A, commission a city-sponsored transportation study of their own neighborhood, B, based on study results and in collaboration with city staff, neighborhoods would draft a comprehensive plan that would seek to systematically increase connectivity, bike and pedestrian safety, and overall livability within their neighborhood, and C, finally, present said plan to MMTC for review. So we've got a motion on the table, and I'm curious to know what the discussion is.
Thanks, Michael. Could you put that motion back up, that slide, please?
I can, yep.
Thank you. And so we have a motion and a second to go. Randy's a second, and then we can go to discussion. So let's just have some thoughts. Since I'm talking, I'll continue to talk. This is fantastic, Michael. It's really good. I love the idea of this, getting the community energized and understanding what's possible. I like the idea of this motion because it takes that excitement and fervor that you've stirred up in the community level and gives it a path to get through to actually get some things done. And I think this is it's a nice way once you create that. I feel like you have a rightful place for it to be walked through the city. So I love this idea, and I think it's a great step forward. Any other comments on this idea?
I think one thing too is it fits into those 4 goals that Maggie was talking about earlier that came out of our retreat. Is that one of those things was a connected bicycle network, and it's a hard thing to do because there's so many different pieces of it that need to go into that. But if we can have each neighborhood or neighborhoods that are motivated to do this kind of study and look for connectivity in their own neighborhood to other outside areas, that's one of those pieces that we do need to have an overall connected network. And so having neighborhoods take some ownership on that, I think would help advance one of our goals for this next year as well.
Other comments? Maggie?
I'll jump in too, just kind of saying there's so many times that folks just say like the city should do this, the city should do that, and this is a pretty awesome example where like the community is organizing yourselves and doing it really well and effectively and getting that excitement so that it's not just like Michael's idea or so-and-so's great. It's like this community is really organizing themselves, and that is like awesome. And I think this idea is in support of saying, okay, well, how can this if we're in support of this, then it's a chance for the organizing to be rewarded and kind of move forward. So I really like seeing that participation and that leadership.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And it makes me think of what Eric said in his presentation that, if you're not part of that budgeting process, it might be a really good idea, but you're just not, there's no way to get involved because there are so many other things that the city's doing. And I feel like it's discouraging to that community group because they're really putting their blood, sweat, and tears into these ideas, and we want to make sure that they can turn into something. So I really like this path, and I'm not sure what it will finally look like, but I really like the idea of having something there, so at least there's some follow-up. Any other comments?
Yeah, and I'm just going to comment, on this myself. I left this motion pretty broad, and I'm hoping that what we're doing is creating the trajectory. We're putting out the bones, and we're hoping that city staff can help us put the skin on this thing. Because we as a neighborhood, put my neighborhood association hat on as the co-chair of the neighborhood association. We don't have the expertise to know what to do with this. We know we've got a lot of feedback that people want this stuff, but now what? So the now what is this motion would put the request in front of staff to work with the neighborhood, to figure out what the issues are and what are the best ways to create a menu of options to fix those issues. And then hopefully that's something that we can put back in front of this group, so we can weigh in with the collective expertise that we have and ultimately pass it up to council.
Is there another hand up?
Yeah, Joe's got something.
I'm sorry, Joe. Yes, please.
That's good. I'm curious, Michael. I mean, I appreciate that it is broad-based, and I appreciate, well, one, I guess just back up. I'm glad it turned out really great. I was really excited. I wasn't able to get down there, but I'm glad it turned out to be a really great event, and certainly was a great weekend for it weather-wise. I'm curious, the motion that you've got is pretty broad-based, and I wonder, I keep coming back to this line, support the establishment of a citywide program, and I'm wondering, I hear you talking about moving it, kind of putting it on staff maybe to do this, but I think we all know that, staff is just overwhelmed, and I'm wondering how much of that establishing the program or creating a better framework for what the program is needs to fall on this commission. And it's more of a question than a statement. Again, I'm just kind of, I just keep coming back to that line, and how does this really work, and how much more does this commission need to do to flesh that out? Does that make sense?
It does, and I think it's important. The reason that the citywide program language had been put in was really to address the fact, to make assurance that this was something that was going to be available to every neighborhood, not just Oakley. I really think that's where the devil's in the details at that point. Who creates that framework, and I'd be willing to throw my hat into a subcommittee, to work on that, what that looks like. But I just would think that it needs to be standard across the board. So when, East-West Asheville neighborhood says that they want to do something, or like today, I actually got a call from Heath with the South Slope Neighborhood Association saying, he had some current concerns about South Slope, and what do we do with that? And he called me directly, and I was like, well, that's the thing, we need this motion that we're putting on the table today is going to put us on the track to create a pathway for that, which we don't really have.
Yeah. Oh, sure. And well, I think too, in some ways, that perhaps this commission, or at least, again, the collective commission, probably has the knowledge base, certainly more maybe than some other neighborhood groups. The fact that you're on multimodal plus you're on the neighborhood group, there's probably a lot of neighborhood groups that don't have someone that either has transportation experience or has any direct, any doings with the city in that regard. I would think that this commission maybe has more experience to be able to work with staff to help craft it. in some ways I kind of feel, I shouldn't say I feel bad, but it seems like we're just asking staff for more and more when I think that we could work together with them to help create this. I totally agree. It needs to be something that is a framework that works in any neighborhood. You know, it can't just be specific to one neighborhood or one particular, part of the city.
Yeah, so I'm with you on that, and I don't want to put so much on staff that it's like a, kind of be back burner or considered a automatic no. So yeah, it doesn't need to be staff that creates the framework. I think there is enough expertise on this committee or on this commission to put that framework together. And I think what we could do with this motion is get that ball rolling, and I can change it here now to reflect that.
I mean, I don't think it needs to change. It was just kind of the comments and questions that were coming to my mind as far as discussion about it. So,
yeah, I think it would be part of our civic duty as members of this commission to volunteer to create a framework like that, because it's something that's come up so many times since I've been on this commission. Like, well, you've got this neighbor over here that wants a crosswalk, you've got somebody over here that wants a stoplight, and you've got somebody over here that wants a bike lane. How do we distill all of that into a focal point that can actually be addressed?
Well, and it plugs right into the priority number 2. I was looking over all that stuff before the meeting about that, you guys went over in the retreat. And I mean, it definitely nails, priority 2 right there.
Well,
yeah, I agree. Bill?
So yeah, I'm struggling with this a little bit just because I'm wondering where do we go from here to there, right? So I guess it seems like what we're doing here, and I love it, but the neighborhood has to take ownership over these proposed ideas, right? Michael, is that your idea, or is it a suggestion that the city does a transportation study of all neighborhoods? Is it?
So it's not all neighborhoods. So what we're basically what we've done is we collected a lot of feedback. A lot of people said, well, I want traffic calming here. I want a crosswalk over here. I want, these fixtures here and there across the neighborhood. But we need to take, as the ODAP had mentioned, a scientific approach to this type of stuff. So if we can commission a city-sponsored evaluation of a neighborhood and say, based off of this transportation report, this traffic report, we can look at this traffic volume, look at where it's coming from, how much of it is through traffic, look at all these different points of data. And then the city has the expertise to make some recommendations of saying, if we did some traffic calming, it would be most effective if we did it here, here, and here. This is the menu that we would recommend to the neighborhood. And then at that point, the neighborhood has something to work with that they can coalesce around and create a plan that they would like to present to this group that's more holistic.
But is the idea that a neighborhood comes forward and says, hey, we've got a need, can you help us? Is that where it all starts? Yeah. So it's a mechanism that it's some way it's broadcast to all neighborhoods. It says, hey, we've got this mechanism for you guys to follow if you're interested. And if they raise their hand and say we're interested, then there now is a process by which they can engage with the city to make whatever improvements need to be made. Am I understanding it that way?
That's what I'm shooting for. I mean, okay. I think this needs to be neighborhood driven.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of good intentions about where some of this stuff should go, but sometimes it's not always in alignment with what the neighbors think. So if the neighbors can be proactive and say, hey, these are the issues that we have. We want to, have this study commissioned, and we want to work with the city to come up with a strategy that makes sense for, the city budget as well as our needs as a neighborhood. I think then everybody wins.
Yeah. I mean, would you envision the study would be they'd be engaged in the study too, right? The individual neighborhood would need to be. It's almost like if we word it in a way in which the neighborhood needs to be engaged in the study, then all of a sudden we got a lot more hands to work with, right?
Absolutely, and that's part of that framework that I'm hoping that we can flesh out. But I would absolutely want neighborhoods to be compelled to have to be really engage with this. They'd have to provide volunteer hours for traffic counts, for example. But there's probably other ideas out there too. But I think all of this really hinges on the idea of getting as much buy-in across as many people as possible to really make it effective in adoption.
And
Anna? Excuse me. I'm sorry, Bill. Please complete your thought.
I'm sorry, I'm just running on, but what do you think the ask is? Is it for money? Is it for people? Is it for just establish a process? It's not clear to me yet exactly what the ask is, other than
this motion. So this motion is asking to get the ball rolling to figure out the answers to those questions.
Okay.
So, we don't have a game plan yet for point A to point Z. We need to figure out the in between. And I think this motion explicitly asked for some staff time, some multimodal time to figure out exactly, what a game plan could look like, how that could work. And I have some ideas and some theories, but I think it needs to be a group project, and I'd love input from everybody if that's something that we could move forward with.
Well, I guess just my final reaction, I think, is probably what Joe might have been thinking, is that maybe this should just be us ask of ourselves as opposed to us ask of the city.
Thank you.
Does that? I don't know if that's what you were asking, Joe, or not, but maybe this should be our job. Comes to my mind.
That's an interesting way to turn it around, Bill. I hadn't gotten to there yet, but it hits a little bit, yeah.
Anna?
Thanks. I just wanted to share Randy's question in the chat, since folks may not be able to see that. He asked me what my perspective on the ability of neighborhood associations to participate in this type of opportunity might be. And excuse me, right now, oh my gosh, the community engagement, Jeremy Lett, who I work with all the time as the community liaison or the staff liaison for NAC, his department has worked diligently to create a process, an application and award process for the community grants program that they are that is now available for neighborhoods to submit applications for. And I don't have all of those details right in front of me, but I think that to speak to Joe's concerns, I love this idea. I think it's an incredibly tall order for staff to take on in the midst of all of the other things that staff is doing right now. But I do think that there is, I think it's a great idea. And I think that neighborhoods would be interested in accessing support or resources if there was some sort of process like this in place. I bring up the neighborhood grants program because seeing how that might play out and transpire over the next few months, since it's sort of like a pilot program, might be a really good indicator into how something in a similar vein might work, or just looking at some things that if this were to come to fruition, things that we may want to do differently with this compared to that program, or just learn some of the pros and cons of what they've learned through going through that process. So that's a pretty rambly statement, but we hear all the time on NAC about traffic issues. I don't know necessarily if they translate into multimodal concerns explicitly, but this goes back to sort of like when you're working with communities and folks who aren't in the thick of this day to day, they may not use the sort of like quote unquote correct like terminology or lingo or jargon to accurately express sort of like the issue at hand. So I think there would certainly be an appetite for it. I also, just me personally getting into the weeds of things really quickly and being all about processes, I'm like, how would we do this? But that's maybe me getting ahead of myself. So that's my long-winded answer.
Thanks. Pat?
Yeah, what I'm getting from this is that the city is asking, Oakley is asking the city to pay for a traffic study, maybe similar to what was done on McDowell and Hendersonville, or are they asking that they could produce a study themselves, and generate it and then show it to the city or to us for tweaking and editing and approval? What I'm thinking is along with Anna, that the staff has a lot of resources, but they have a lot of demands on the people. And it's always easier to edit than to initiate. If the city of Oakley had an idea of what a request for proposal would look like, or if they had resources to actually draw the plan up themselves, because it's, your streets and where you would probably want the bike lanes and the sidewalks and stuff. Would it make sense for you all to do that analysis from the grassroots level and then bring that to the city for how does that fit in with your plans and what you might already have funded? For example, the Swanona Greenway Trail. It sounds to me like you're asking for money and you don't have any idea of how much it's going to cost. It would have to be part of a budget. Can the city support the neighborhood drawing up a plan for themselves?
Bill?
Sorry, I apologize for dominating the conversation. I think we need to figure out a way to make this happen. The question is how, because it's a clear need. And I was wondering, is this a case where Oakley could be just a pilot effort that we could execute on our own so that we can determine what this process might look like and get just some ball rolling a little bit? I mean, I don't know what it's going to look like until we actually engage, right? No, I don't think anybody does unless we do. I don't. But maybe that's a possible vehicle where we just say, this sounds great. Let's figure out how it works and authorize Michael and or Oakley to get started on it. If it requires money asks, then that's a different thing, or resource asks. We've just had visitors to our group that want to get engaged with us. We could engage something right now as almost a pilot effort just to try to understand what this process should look like. Does that make any sense?
Bingo. That's really the heart of what I'm asking for. This hasn't been done before. There's going to be some trial and error and a lot of legwork, I think, on behalf of the neighborhood. Hopefully some people in this group would want to volunteer some time. But if we can get a good process down pat, I'd like to see this exported to every neighborhood in Asheville, because I think, like I said, it's that vehicle that's missing right now.
Yeah. And if we develop a process that engages neighborhoods, folks, we suddenly have a whole lot more bandwidth to work with if all the neighborhoods do a lot of the work themselves. I think that would be really cool. So our job is around defining the process. We need step 1 through 20 to be done. People execute steps 1 through 20. At the end, it results in some recommendation. I think that's a great idea.
John?
Yeah, I think this is a great idea as well. I did have a couple questions just with the language. So I'm not sure how this works. Does every neighborhood in the city have an association? And what defines a neighborhood in the city? Because I know that some of the lines are blurred, and there's like some neighborhood is split up into micro neighborhoods, right? Yeah. So I guess that's the first question I had, and then the other question I had was what defines a study? But I think that the idea is great. I love that. It's driven by the people in the community, and it's you're really engaging the community and trying to get something done from the city, which can be something difficult to achieve. And going back to what Joe said, you don't want to burden the city with more work. And then going to what Bill just said, I think that's a great idea. Maybe using Oakley as a as a pilot that could maybe work. But then I guess my question is, today in this motion, what would happen if we were to adopt this motion?
So I'm going to let Anna answer the question about neighborhoods, but as far as the other aspects of your question, first of all, I would like to address the idea about putting more additional burden on staff, because I kind of see this as the antithesis of that. As it is now, whenever somebody's upset with somebody, parking on a sidewalk or parking in a space that they shouldn't, or if they want a traffic calming solution, they probably as an individual call up the city, and we're fielding all kinds of calls from all over the Asheville. What this process would seek to do is to take some of that burden off the city and let the neighborhood associations collect that data from the neighborhood as a whole and distill it, and then hand that off to staff to work with something that's been distilled. So I think that helps. And then as far as like, what do we do with this if we vote on this today? Just kind of think about this motion as an endorsement of Multimodal Commission, saying that this is the trajectory that we want to go on. I think at that point it's going to be incumbent on volunteers of this group and hopefully my neighborhood to do some of the legwork as far as defining, well, what is a study? What's involved there? What should be standardized when we're looking at this? And then to what Bill was saying, we can kind of craft that as a pilot and come back to Multimodal and say, hey, what do y'all think about A, this process that we've put together? We think it could be standardized, and B, what do y'all think about the specific recommendations to the neighborhood? Is that something that's in alignment with Multimodal's perspective, and is it in alignment with the city's overall goals? And then at that point, once we've done that, the ball is really up in the air for council to decide whether or not they want to, engage with the citizens who are making the request.
So this would basically become an agenda item, like a future agenda item that we would discuss further, essentially.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
If that's cool with Dennis.
Yeah, definitely. Anna, did you want to finish up, please?
Sure. So I put the link to neighborhood registration information in the chat box as well. It's basically up to how the neighborhood points of contact want to organize. The neighborhood itself determines its physical boundaries or geographical boundaries, and there is a standardized form or registration form that the city asks folks in that neighborhood to complete and to submit. Right now, Brenda Mills is the interim equity and inclusion director for the city. She was the neighborhood services manager. Right now, Jeremy Lett is the interim neighborhood and community engagement manager. Jeremy Lett is the interim person in that position, and he's amazing. We work with him as the staff liaison to NAC. And so he has, I think, from things on like a very like micro or neighborhood level, definitely reach out to him and utilize him as a resource. The things that I'm thinking of right now are like, yes, this neighborhood grants program is starting to kick off. And so it'll be really interesting to see how we sort of measure success with that. The dollar amounts aren't huge. And like what I keep coming back to, just because I work in this stuff day to day, is like, I don't think there's ever a really clear understanding of how much this stuff costs in terms of like labor and planning. Like just a simple sort of like speed hump installation and design and all of that is upwards of like $10,000, or could be, or all of the things that you need to go through to determine that you need something like that. So I think that's certainly not to poo-poo anything we're talking about today. It's just like I keep getting like grounded in like the financial constraints and realities of this. I also wonder too, like the city has a traffic calming policy and sort of a process in place for folks to submit concerns regarding like their neighborhood. I know that that is deviating from what you're talking about here, Michael, but also just sort of like exploring what the city currently has as resources related to this and seeing how we might be able to either like improve those processes or leverage those in some way, I think could be helpful too. So
absolutely, Anna. And I think that's part of what I would envision as being part of this study, is to say, you know, what resources are already allocated to this type of work. And I think for neighbors is like, there seems to be no rhyme or reason, at least to a lot of people, as far as why a traffic hump got put in on this road, but it didn't get put in over on this road, or why a stop sign was put in here, or why a road was repaved over there. There just seems to be no engagement with the community neighborhood as far as like where those things are prioritized. And I would suggest that part of this process is to upend that a little bit and allow neighborhoods to have a proactive seat at the table when some of those dollars are spent.
I mean, I think this is a really good idea. Unfortunately, we're up against a hard 5 o'clock today due to some technical stuff, but I'd like to raise my hand and maybe work with you, Michael, so you and I can maybe kind of put some of this together. In a previous committee that I work with in my previous community, the Transportation Committee, we actually had a form when someone wanted a stop sign. It explained, here's the threshold for the city. This is where a stop sign is appropriate. And then they had open areas where they had to answer these questions. And I think it gave some meat around what you're talking about. And maybe what we could do is kind of talk about, you know, investing what Anna was talking about and some of these things that already exist, and just creating a page where they're available. And then you and I can maybe start putting some forms together about what is the information that they need, what is the work that the community can do then to give it to the city, so at least they have some idea of, you know, is this just a grievance that someone might have, or is actually is a real issue, so we can start to, you know, frame some of these things. Because I think you're right, we don't have the ability to have city go out at every single request and make sure that, you know, there's traffic calming issues without some data coming in from the community. Anna?
Yeah, and I know that we have to move on. I just want to say that I'm not sure how much like I can initiate, but I'm happy to be part of that conversation, Michael, or have you sort of like be there as a resource, or sort of like again, liaison with the neighborhood advisory committee, but also just from personal professional experience. So.
Michael, would you be okay with you and I, maybe we can table this motion, you and I meeting, mm-hmm. and starting to put some of this together, and then we can add this as a future agenda item, and you and I can come back with something to the group in a couple of months and say, you know, this is what the plan can look like?
Yeah, I'd like that. I'm completely fine with this not being resolved today, but as long as we're on that, like I said, that trajectory to getting to that end goal, I think that's fine. What I would request is, you know, Dennis and anybody else that's on this commission, you know, perhaps we could have a sit down with, you know, our neighborhood's transportation committee and talk about goals and ideas and what a potential study could look like, what would be the goal of the study, and then how that study would be used to affect, you know, positive livability in the neighborhood.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I like the idea that we can create something that then can be used by every community. And John, you brought up a point earlier about does every community have every neighborhood have a group? This is, I think, one of these things that if it's created, this will generate that cohesiveness within the community. They're going to build a group, so they're going to want to communicate with us. So I think this is one of those tools that can really deliver a lot of value everywhere. Everybody good? Well done, Michael. Thank you very much. That was outstanding.
I appreciate it, everybody. I look forward to anybody's input on this.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So good. Unfinished business. We're going to get an update on the Transit Committee request to become a commission. Jessica?
So that request was supposed to go to council yesterday evening at their meeting, but the council members asked to have it postponed until a future meeting, and there has not yet been a date for it to be re-added to the council agenda. So I will have to keep you guys updated.
Okay, great. The next item is the status on the citywide 25 mph default speed limit.
I have no update
at this time. Okay. The bike share. Sorry.
This item and the next item too, I just want to maintain its place on the agenda, even if we don't have much of an update. I know like the next item is a real staffing issue, and not only to put Jessica on the spot necessarily, I just want to make sure that we keep this in our consciousness because both these things have been motions that we've moved forward.
Absolutely. Okay. The next item is the discussion of the retreat and next steps. So it's a couple of things I want to cover off really quickly on. The retreat was, I think, a huge success. Thank you again, Maggie. It just worked out very well. I thought we really kind of built some group camaraderie there. There are 4 outputs. We have folks that have raised their hands for all of them. I think we have 3 folks that we're still looking to have you select. I think it's Pat, Bill, and Carla. So if you can all kind of go into that, the mosaic. There's a link on our agenda at the bottom that goes to our partner documents. The retreat summary is in there, and there's a link from the retreat summary that Maggie put together that goes to that document. If you can raise your hand and get a part of one of those groups, what the plan is over the next 4 meetings, maybe not the November, December meeting because we have some other issues on the table there, or that might work. We're going to talk about each one of these things. Maybe that group can come to the meeting, put together a couple of items to talk about, to see how we're going to turn these action items into things that we can actually work on as a group, turn them into items, agenda items on our for our commission, and then actually deliver some type of real value as we go forward. So that's kind of what I'm hoping that each one of these groups will do. I think, going through, you can see where folks have raised their hands, or you can just send me a note, let me know what you want to participate in. I can send that out to everybody so everyone has that, so we can all start putting those pieces together. So it might start in December. Maybe, it makes sense with the streetscape issues because we're meeting with the downtown folks. So there's some things in there that we can talk about. But I think it's important that we just kind of make sure that we're striking while the iron's hot and getting some work done with these items. Does that make sense with everyone?
Hey, Dennis, I had one question.
Yes, sir.
If there's more than 3 people collaborating, we are okay to have a meeting. Is that correct? Or are there rules about that?
There are rules about that. We wouldn't be able to have a meeting. So in those instances, you'll see that Anna has very graciously raised her hand on multiple areas. So Anna and Kenny, I believe, have done that. So I'm sure they would pull back on one. I think they were just looking to make sure that there was enough participation for each one. So I think we need to have, I believe, 3, no more than 3. Is that correct? I think that's right.
So 3 or fewer can meet. Above 3 cannot
Correct.
meet. Okay.
Right. Yeah. So feel free to raise your hand somewhere, and we can shift folks around.
All right. Thanks.
All right. Okay. Let's see what else we have here. Okay, we can go into real quick to committee updates. John, I know you and I had spoke earlier about transit, but is it the case that transit did not meet last month? Okay, so there's no update there at this time. And then we can go into Greenway Committee. Kenny, I'm not sure if Kenny's still with it. Kenny's still with us? Might have lost Kenny there. There is, I think everyone received the invite. There's a field trip for, I think it's November, the first week in November for the Greenway Committee to walk through the new section that's being built. If there's time, we're going to meet with the that project manager as well. So I think that's really helpful for us to kind of get that feedback as things are happening, talk to them about some of the challenges they might be facing, so we can use that learning to, because we have this plan to build all these other greenways happening. So I think that's a really helpful thing. And it's also nice, quite frankly, to see when we talk about things theoretically here, go out there and, walk in the mud and see how they're coming together. It's a good time. Okay, yeah. So everyone's got the invite, so please do sign up for that and come along. Let's see, Bike Ped, Randy?
Yeah, so the September meeting minutes are attached, and basically the biggest thing that's going on is the bike ped counts that we do on an annual basis at a number of intersections on a 3-day period each December. We did not have a meeting last Thursday as we normally would have, because as most of us know, the part of me is having health issues, which precludes her from being able to be our staff person anymore. So Lucy Crown is taking that over, and during this transition time, we're having to kind of reassess a few things, and so we didn't meet last month. But our goal is to meet right at our normal time. I think it's November 18th in November, and kind of start to just make sure that we are in a position to move forward. Just as a group, so we can still be effective even without Barb, being there. Obviously, it's a community-driven group, but we rely heavily on staff, obviously, and Lucy has a lot of other obligations too, and I know that the staff in general in that area is kind of hard pressed. So we're just trying to make sure that we don't rely so much so on staff to drive that group. And during the last couple months of Barb's illness, we've kind of seen how much she does drive that group, and we need to kind of reevaluate and just move forward so that we can continue doing the great work that the group has done.
Okay, great, thanks. Joe, anything going on in PSC lately?
Not a thing. It's just quiet. There's no really big issues at all with development. So, one of the more interesting things, I don't know if any of you, there was a little article, I think the last couple of weeks ago, about a little micro housing development that was going to happen down. If everybody knows where the hotspot is downtown, kind of in the lot to the west of that along Hilliard Avenue, that came through. Essentially, imagine, I like to call it the yesterday's hotel, or the future hotel that is going to be today's housing. I'm not using the word affordable because it's probably not going to be, but interesting concept, and essentially more housing units downtown. So
excellent, thank you. Next, Anna, the NAC update.
Sure. We also on Monday got a presentation from the Office of Data and Performance, so I'm really excited to see that office gaining some momentum and working with other city departments into the future. We also received a presentation from the DILA on the Open Space Task Force proposed amendments to the existing ordinance. And my fellow committee member, Sharon Summerall, has really sort of spearheaded NAC's participation on that task force. I've sat in as well, but a lot of it, to be honest, is over my head. And we are I think that is going to P&Z next week, Joe. But they're looking for, staff is looking for sort of statements of approval or approval with conditions on proposed amendments. And I think NAC is needing a little bit more time to review things so that it can comment and feel that it's providing informed comment. So those were the two main things that we talked through on Monday night.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, the next item, looks like we're going to make it. Staffing updates, transportation planning. Jessica, do you have an update, please?
Sure, we sort of touched on this here and there, but we are very short-staffed right now, more so than maybe I've been in the 3+ years I've been here. We recently had Dan Bechtold retired after 24 years with the city. And as Randy mentioned, Barb, who is our other, one of our other planners, is extremely ill, and it's not a good prognosis. So we have been taking on basically all of her work for the last few months. And so it's been a bit challenging in the transportation planning division. But I will say that we recently completed final interviews for a transportation planner 1 position. And so we are hoping to get that at least one more planner back on staff in the next month or 2. And I was very, very happy with the candidates that we got. And so we'll keep you updated there. And then the only other update I want to provide is a good news update, which is that our very own Amy Testner has recently been promoted to be the grants financial analyst in our transit division. So she is kind of learning the ropes of that position while still holding down the fort in her current position. And so we will be re-advertising for Amy's position, hopefully very soon, so that we can get someone in to be the staff, one of our primary staff supports in transportation. And so Amy can hopefully train that person while she's also being trained in her new role. But I just want to say thanks to Amy and congratulations to Amy, because she definitely deserves this new position. Other than that, I think, we're just trying to keep as much going as we possibly can, and, trying to prioritize as best we can. And we're headed into budget season, which is obviously a priority for us. And so we'll take away some additional time from other things, but something that seems to be a never-ending thing is budget. But we will be kicking that off with the broader city here in the next few weeks. So yeah, we'll just keep doing the best we can. So thank you, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And thank you, Amy. So that's about it. Notice our future agenda items. Michael, I will work with you offline to ensure that your item gets on there very soon. And if you can also raise your hand for the folks who haven't, just let me know what part you want to participate in, and we'll get that rolling. And then you'll be getting that update about our November, December joining meeting. Please make sure we fill that out so we can get that on the books. And anything else? All right, we're good. Thanks so much, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
Everybody have a good day.
Bye.